Hey friends, I know that I've had a lot of people that have been super curious about how I found out that I had breast cancer, which I think is just normal for us to want to know if there's something that we should be doing or how we should be looking, etc. And so I just wanted you to hear my voice and hear a little bit of my story in hopes that maybe it could save somebody else or just give somebody else some knowledge that I didn't have. I'm 40, of course. I turned 40 in February, and I've been the most healthy I've ever been. I worked out every day. I ate right. Um, I had occasional drinks, but I really wasn't terrible to my body. So, cancer kind of hit me from out of nowhere. Um, like I said, I turned 40 in February. I had my annual exam with my OB/GYN that has taken care of me for the last 15, 20 years, I don't even know, that February. I've been doing self-breast exams since I was in my 20s, so well over 15 years or more, I guess, I've been doing those. And I know what my body feels like. Unfortunately, I have super dense breasts, so they feel lumpy anyway, and so sometimes it's hard to feel or even see stuff on an image like a mammogram because a tumor is white, but dense breast tissue is also white, so it's really just hard for us women who have dense tissue to find stuff like that as easily. But I knew my body, and I will tell you that in February I went, like I said, I had my annual, I had a breast exam. The doctor didn't feel anything. I had done one that week. I didn't feel anything, so that was February. Of course, March hit and COVID came, and the gyms and stuff had started kind of shutting down. I'd started working out again in May, and I had done some pretty heavy like bench press stuff, overhead lifts, and I was just sore. But for somebody that lifts weight often, we kind of torture our bodies and thrive off of that sore feeling. So being sore wasn't really anything that was new to me. But I had that workout, and I came home and was sitting in this chair actually with my kids, and I was sore. So normally when you do a self-breast exam, you've done it, if you've watched the videos how to do it, the doctor told you how to do it. You know, you're in the shower with an arm over your head, or laying down, circular motions and whatnot. So that's what I typically had always done when I was feeling for anything in my breast. Well, that day, because I'd had such a hard workout, I was actually massaging the side of my breasts because they hurt, and I basically like had the palm of my hand almost in my armpit and slid up, massaging that area because I was sore. I did it on both sides at the same exact time, and on the left side, something rolled under my palm. It rolled, and I just remember thinking, well, that's not normal. So I basically, went on with my day and everything. I did a breast exam in the shower like I normally had done. I didn't really feel anything. I felt a little bit of a hardened area, but again, that wasn't anything that was super abnormal for me. I laid down in bed that night and did a breast exam normally. I really didn't feel anything there, and then I rolled over on my side, which is also a way that I would have never examined my breast. I'm pretty standard in the shower, above my head, laying down, whatever. And so I rolled over on my side, brought my arm up over my head, and I had surgery 3 weeks ago and can now lift my arm over my head, which I'm super excited about, but that's beside the point. But I raised that arm over my head and felt, and in the side, I felt something, the same thing that rolled underneath the palm of my hand. So I guess the moral of the story is obviously I'm not a doctor, so always go to your doctor. But sometimes textbook isn't everything, and we are all made different. Our bodies are made different. We react to things differently. And so for myself, I couldn't feel it on a normal breast exam. I felt it in putting myself in awkward situations or positions, I guess you could say. And then it was very dominantly felt like that. So just a little word to the wise that when you are doing breast exams, go a little bit above and beyond textbook and feeling in your armpits and up underneath your armpits and in different levels of your breast, if that makes sense at all. But definitely seek out help from your doctor. I'm just giving you my personal story, so not in any way taking credit for being a breast cancer specialist or anything like that. I just wanted you to know how I found it, because a lot of people have asked me, and so hopefully this can help inspire somebody to do a breast exam, or to do it a little bit differently, making sure that you're very thorough, you're doing it every month, and that you're knowing your body and the changes that it goes through. So anyway, I felt that lump in May, and in my head I knew it was cancer, but also selfishly in my head I had already rescheduled a vacation to Disney with my children in July, and that we had rescheduled from a trip that had gotten canceled for COVID. And in my head, I thought, I have cancer, and this really may be my last shot at taking my kids on a vacation. Horrible attitude to have, but in that moment, that's the way I felt. So when I'd had my breast exam in February, because I turned 40, we scheduled a mammogram, because that's what you do when you turn 40. You schedule a mammogram. Well, we scheduled that mammogram, and that mammogram actually got pushed until August because COVID. I actually was getting furloughed during that time. The hospitals were going through crazy changes, and I just said, well, I'll just keep that August appointment. I'm not going to rush. I also wanted to kind of set out a couple weeks, because sometimes our bodies go through changes when we're getting ready to go onto our menstrual cycle, and we can get cysts, and then those will go away when our cycle ends. And so in my head, I'm like, well, I'm just going to give it this time just to see if things really change, if this goes away. Well, it didn't go away, and I did take my trip to Florida, which I will forever be grateful for, with my kids. I came back that week and met with my doctor, and he felt it and said, you know, you've got your appointment in 2 weeks in August, so let's stick with that, you know, and just go from there. So I had my mammogram in August. I got a call back 2 days later, and they basically said, we see an area of architectural distortion on your mammogram, exactly where I felt the lump. So I was like, yeah, I know. So they were like, we need to do a diagnostic mammogram. Plan to be there for 4 to 5 hours. You know, you will find out something that day. You can't bring anybody, you got to be alone, which was super difficult, but that got scheduled 2 weeks later. So 2 weeks later, I go in, we're towards the end of August now, and I went in, had a mammogram done, went and sat in this really awkward waiting room with 20 other women, and it's kind of like that feeling of process of elimination. Some go out, some come back in, you see others again, and it's kind of like last man standing. And well, I was last man standing that day. I was in the office way beyond hours, just because they were so thorough with me, but I definitely closed the place down by myself. I went in, I had another mammogram done, a little bit different positioning, and then I went back to the room and sat, and then they pulled me back and said, we need to do an ultrasound. On the mammogram, it was showing up just super pinched. If you ever want to see them, I have all my images. I'm happy to share them if it can help anybody, educate anyone. I'm happy to show you. They did the ultrasound, and that's where it really became an image. You could really see tumors. They kind of look like they've got little tentacles on them, and they're growing out. It wasn't a perfect circle. It was, it was different. It was scary. It was a scary looking pattern, I guess. So they did the ultrasound, and then I sat there for a little while, and then they said, the radiologist thinks that this is cancer, and they want to do a biopsy, and I said, all right, that's great. So the radiologist walked in, and she literally looked at me, and she said, this is cancer. She said, I want to do a biopsy. And of course, I'm freaking out because I'm like all about science. And I'm like, well, wouldn't you rather do, send this off to pathology before you tell me that I have cancer, So I was a little bit I was overwhelmed. They did the biopsy. It didn't really hurt. It hurt the day after, but during the biopsy, it didn't hurt at all. They then, cleaned me up, bandaged me up, and sent me on my way. Got a phone call the next day, and the nurse said it wasn't the news that we wanted to hear, but it's what we thought that it was. And I said, okay. And she said, you have a 1.8 centimeter mass that is ductal. It was intermediate ductal carcinoma. Yes, so basically it started in my milk ducts and then grew out of the milk ducts into the surrounding tissues. So right there it was already staged at stage 1 in the early beginning. And so I met with a surgeon the next week, and then he sent me in for an MRI the very next week, where I threw up on a gazillion-dollar table the first time, got super sick, couldn't go through the procedure. Had to go back the next week with lots of drugs. And finally I got through that MRI, and luckily there wasn't any other spots or masses that were seen. The image that was seen very vaguely on ultrasound and mammogram blew up literally like a Christmas tree on my MRI. And again, if you ever want to chat and see those images, I'm happy to share anything that would help somebody else. I will definitely share those. So then I was scheduled for surgery. So that's kind of my story, how I found it. Working out for me was a blessing in disguise. Being a little bit injured from working out was a blessing in disguise. Because if I hadn't hurt myself working out, I don't know that I would have been massaging the inside of my armpits and came down in a position that I normally wouldn't have. So anyway, I am almost 3 weeks out of surgery. It was stage 2B breast cancer. My prognosis is great for now. I'm basically waiting on an Oncotype score where they send my tumor off to get a DNA test to see what the actual reoccurrence rate for that particular tumor is. And then based on that, we decide whether infusion chemo is the right option or not, because chemo is so toxic to our bodies, but that's the only powerful way that we have to really kill cancer. But if my reoccurrence rate is smaller than the risk of what chemo would do, then, we won't do chemo. So basically I'll find out, I think November 4th, I should get that score back and meet with the oncologist to finalize all of my treatment plans. I do have to have at least 20 rounds of radiation daily because of just to kill whatever cancer cells are left that are microscopic, that we're really not seeing, that are there, we don't see. So we do radiation to try to kill the exact areas where the tumor was. I may have to have an additional 5 just because during surgery they want at least a 2 millimeter clearance of clear margin, and I only had one clear or 1 millimeter of clear margin, so they'll do a little bit of extra radiation on me just to be thorough, just to make sure that we get that area. And so that's my story. I have lots of other stories to tell eventually, but I just want to be vulnerable, I guess, to you, because I found that being vulnerable helps me find strength in whatever twisted way that is. Me being able to be vulnerable brings strength to me, and it also just gives me the opportunity to share my story and to hopefully save somebody's life or get somebody motivated to go do a mammogram if you're past due. Go do the test that you need to get tested, and just wholeheartedly knowing that this is the hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life, and I'm doing it, and I'm going to continue to do it. And if I can just give one person motivation or inspiration to get through a tough time that you think is going to kill you, just take that for what it is. But if you ever have any questions, if you want to chat, if you want to see my images, super happy to share more in depth. Cancer's ugly. There's nothing pretty about it. It's changed me. I feel like I'm a better person because of cancer, and I know that's crazy to say, but it's definitely given me a wider version of how to look at life and people, and to be more compassionate. It's given me some really dark days, definitely, too. Don't let my positive attitude fool you. I've had some really crappy days, but I don't allow myself to have many of those days, because it's not going to get me anywhere. Attitude is half the battle, and I choose to have a good attitude about it. And I want to live whatever life I have left here that God's going to give me, happy and in charge of this, and to not let fear take over me, because fear destroys me. It destroys me. And knowledge is power. So for a long time I lived just, well, if I don't know about it, then it's not going to hurt me. It's not true. Knowledge is power. So if you have put off your mammogram, please schedule it. If you've put off doing a self-exam, please, for me, do it. I hate the slogan, save the tatas, save second base. Like, no, save the women. Okay? Save me, save you. I don't care about the boobs. Like, I hate that cliche saying of save second base and save the tatas, because I'm more than a boob. I'm a woman, and you're a woman, and we're a man, like, that can have breast cancer. So do me a favor and save humanity, save a person, save you, save a woman, save me. And if you want to chat, I'll chat.